motor racing. To most, it's a sport with just one goal: winning. But to a few, it's an experiment in technology, a way of finding new limits, a way of testing under conditions you could never simulate in a laboratory. The rewards aren't checkered flags or trophies, but information. It was to gain this information that the decision was made to race in world endurance and IMSA competition, not on racing tires, but on experimental street tires. For the experiment, the cars would be devices for engineers to study extreme. The drivers, test pilots. The goal, create the next generation high-performance tire. The project began at the Lola factory in Huntington, England, where a pair of GT prototypes were constructed. The power plants, race-proven Mazda rotary engines. The tires, BF Goodrich experimental TA radials. The team is led by driver Jim Busby, who started as a drag racer in California 25 years ago, chasing 200 miles per hour in the quarter mile.
Motor racing requires a maximum commitment from everybody. I think probably most people see my name out in front like they would a quarterback's name for a football team. However, we've got Jim Tully, who's the team manager here, who actually at trackside probably does a heck of a lot more of the coordinating. By the time I get to trackside, I largely become just a driver.
We started off with these cars as a tire development program where you go and test the cars and you make changes on the car and you make changes in the tires. That's very interesting from my point of view.
When you're testing, you're looking for limits. If you find one and exceed it before you're ready for it, you can have big problems.
Very few people like testing. They actually like racing. I prefer testing.
In the first outings with these tires and trying to stay with the street construction, we had some vibration problems that were shaking the car to pieces, shaking me to pieces, and it took some very clever engineering to cure it, and it took about 3 test sessions. There was one point there I remember thinking, I wonder if it can be done, and they did it.
They were a group of BF Goodrich passenger tire engineers, headed by Chuck Patrick.
Well, these tires will meet all of the requirements of the U.S. Department of Transportation. As a matter of fact, the treaded versions carry a full DOT certification and serial number. Well, we're looking for the extremes, and unfortunately, you can control things, but you can't control the extremes in handling, temperature generation, and durability. You got to go to the track to learn that.
After 3 months and 3,000 test miles, Jim Tully and the crew were ready for their first real competition, the 24 hours of Daytona.
When we first started on this program, I think everybody went in a little bit with their eyes wide open, not really knowing what to expect until the first race.
616 of Busby, Hagee, and Canoop, starting driver, Jim Busby. Gentlemen, start your engines.
Daytona was also the first chance for Chuck Patrick and BFG engineers to see just how their tires would perform against pure racing rubber.
There's no question that they would do better if they had pure race tires. But these guys are good drivers, they know the car, and they know the tires, and they'll give us the feedback that we need as a part of this test program. They're just not out here to win races. These guys are part of that extension of our laboratory. These are test drivers.
Competing directly against the faster Porsches, Marches, and Jaguars, the BFG Lolas begin a relentless charge through the field, working their way up to 2nd and 3rd overall. The cars that were created as test labs could be headed for victory in their first outing. But endurance racing can be a cruel sport where months of hard work can turn sour in an instant. strain of Daytona's high banking has caused the chassis to flex, damaging a gasket in the engine. The front-running Busby Knoop Haya BFG Lola is forced into the pit. The problem can't be fixed, and car 67 must retire.
These guys are extremely talented, bright people that are working for a wage that's almost embarrassing when you count the numbers of hours that they put in, the commitment that it takes, the heartache. To go 22 hours in a race and have the car drop out at the 22nd hour is just absolutely devastating. You walk away, you get your spirits up again, and you go at it again.
The streets of Miami just 3 weeks later. A sprint race and a very different test. Co-driver Rick Knoop describes the strategy.
Miami was basically a 3-hour race. In a 3-hour race, you just go like hell.
For the crew, the race is a chance to bounce back from the disappointment of Daytona.
One of the nice things about car racing is the end product is there in black and white very, very soon. You were either successful or you weren't, and 2 weeks later you're going to get another chance to be successful. There's the same pressures are involved. There's also the same opportunity to fail.
There was a lot of things going on in that particular race which would normally mean to feather, to slow down, to make the car last, and we just drove those cars flat out.
At the finish, the powerful Jaguars are first and second, but the surprising BFG Lolas are not far behind in 5th and 6th overall. Monza, Italy, the team's first taste of World Endurance C2 competition and driver Rick Knoop's first look at European racing.
I think racing is very much more cutthroat over here, mainly because there's many companies, as you can see on the logos of the cars, that have major budgets in road racing. Some of them are just frightfully fast. Sometimes these national heroes go out with a lot of flavor and a lot of color in the beginning. You see their autographs in various parts of the track. The guys that come right out of the box and dive for the first turn on the first lap. Well, those are the people that historically never make it to the end.
The BFG Lolas surprised everyone by moving up to 2nd and 4th place in C2. At the halfway mark, Busby and Knoop take the class lead.
Monza was a very good race for us. We came to Europe rather green in terms of not ever going to the track before, and to get a category win and to be 6th overall was really good.
After 6 hours, the new kids on the block crossed the finish line first in the C2 category. The next stop, 24 hours of Le Mans.
Le Mans is not another race. Le Mans is the race. There is something about Le Mans that absolutely outshines all other motoring events in the world.
It's a childhood dream for me. You know, I had a go-kart when I was 8 years old, and the pictures of my father racing against Lance Verventlow and Scarabs, and Richie Ginther and Chuck Days, and for me to be racing right now and be at Le Mans, you know, I got goosebumps.
It is an endurance event. It does test the machine and the systems and the man to his absolute limits. The Mulsanne Straight, I would suppose, separates this from any other race in the world. Every single time you go down that straight, I don't care who you are well aware that you are traveling at speeds that are not equaled anywhere else in motor racing. And you do it lap after lap after lap after lap, and it goes on forever and ever and ever. But the bottom line is that there's no other motor racing event like Le Mans.
The 52nd running of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the ultimate endurance challenge. Founded in 1922 to dramatically demonstrate the reliability of the motor car to a most suspicious French public, Le Mans has grown to become the contest for manufacturers to test the speed, performance, and endurance of their products in head-to-head competition. But Le Mans is more than a test of technology. It's a test of human stamina.
We've had the car since June last year, and we've done a lot of testing and development, already done a 24-hour race. So hopefully we know what's going to make it go that far. We'll find out.
Well, the biggest thing is we have to pay a lot of attention to minor details, being certain that every part of the car can do its job fully. Make sure all the bolts are tight, all the connections, electric connections especially, are good and secure. You know, the vibration doesn't loosen any parts of the car during the race.
What I'm going to do is separate the cars by 2 laps at the beginning.
Everybody's going to run that.
Yeah, and then we can bring them in and have them separate, and then we'll have a bunch of guys to work on one car at a time.
We're pretty much at the point right now where there's nothing more we can do to the cars. We've done our best.
I don't get nervous before 24-hour races much because they're so long that and you're really not going to do much racing, usually, until the very end, if you're lucky.
It's good that you get into a rhythm, you know what you've got to do, and it just happens on schedule.
The engine's really reliable. We've got a really good chance.
Great chance.
Within the first hour, Busby, Loop, and Haya have jumped into the category lead. Car 68 follows in second. The race strategy is in the hands of team manager Jim Tully.
We sit down just before the race. We normally sit down and rough out a basic strategy of where we'd like to be, how we think we're going to run the race. But the real strategy is actually when the race is taking place, because you then have to take into consideration how the other competitors are running, the people you're competing against directly, whether they're ahead of you, whether they're behind you, whether you need to run faster, slower. And I do most of my race strategy in the pits, as it happens. I find that's the best. It's worked for us this year. We've made decisions as the race has progressed, and we've been very fortunate. These guys are getting 7.4 to the gallon, and you're getting less, a litre less every 15 laps.
Well, then back it off a little and see.
Okay.
Just try it. What revs is he using?
Okay.
As night falls, the cars maintain their lead and the crew maintains their vigil. But the attention of the spectators has turned to other activities of the evening. The Le Mans Carnival.
At night at 3 in the morning, I sometimes wondering what in the blazes I'm doing here. Can I see the flagger? God, I wonder if that was just an oil flag I just went by. It's a lot like skin diving at midnight. You know, you don't really see. You've got a little bit of light, but it seems like you're always overrunning those lights. I was behind a group of cars, and up ahead was a lot of sparks coming out of the left-hand side of this Porsche. So I went to the left, and I saw something fly. I assume it was a piece of bodywork. I was traveling well over 150, and I hit it, and I was just hoping I wasn't going to get launched to the stars.
I always tell my guys not to panic. Do it as quickly as you can, but don't fumble. And sometimes, in actual fact, the fastest way to do it is slowly. Take your time, be sure. You don't want to have to do it twice. Sometimes if you fumble.
After 10 long minutes, the damage from the incident is repaired. 67 returns to the race, now in 4th place. Gone. Just 7 hours to go. The Morton Osteen Katayama BFG Lola is holding first. 67 has moved up to 3rd. The final hour, with victory in sight, the RPMs on the engines are dropped. The drivers ease up. One more lap. 2,692 miles down, 8 to go.
Last lap, isn't it?
Yeah, last lap was 320.
Morton, Osteen, and Katayama take first in the C2 category. Busby, Knoop, and Haya are 3rd. Making the victory even sweeter is the fact that the C2 winning BFG Lola has averaged 112.5 miles per hour for the 24-hour contest, faster than the overall winner's average just 5 years earlier on pure racing tires. But in world endurance racing, there's little time to savor victory. From Le Mans, the team travels to Germany and the brand new Nürburgring circuit and are greeted by the old cantankerous Nürburgring weather, cold and rainy. Treaded tires must be fitted. The information learned throughout the season no longer applies. Softer springs are installed, sway bars disconnected, and the drivers must cope with the elements.
Visibility is absolutely terrible in these cars because of the way these ground effects cars go. The car's at one level and there's a 100-foot rooster tail, and the faster you go, the longer that rooster tail is. So if you ever try to slipstream in the rain, you're absolutely looking for a disaster to happen. You have to fly almost in formation and off to the side because directly behind there's no way you can see where you're going.
It's the first chance we've ever had to try these tires in the wet, and all the drivers were pleasantly surprised. We did not expect them to be what they were.
The new Questa car charges through the rain into the category lead, only to drop out with a gearbox failure. As the track dries, the challenge is left to Busby and co-driver Pete Halsmer, who come home a strong second. Japan, halfway around the world, and the final event in a season-long project.
It wouldn't surprise me if the total mileage at the end of the year was something in the region of 20,000 miles, racing and testing.
The circuit, the famed Fuji International Speedway.
Our intent is to test the street construction in a race profile. What it has is 2 plies of rayon, just like the street tire, folded fiberglass belts, as in our CompTA, with 2 nylon overplies.
But all is not well. The team is caught by surprise.
That was scary, when it started getting that high speed over.
You didn't adjust the front wing.
Fuji's abrasive volcanic surface is playing havoc with tire temperatures.
It hesitated on the turn-in, and I didn't feel any improvement on the acceleration off the corner.
I'd like them to stay out as long as they can and get some kind of idea of where.
Okay. The cars aren't handling. The tire engineers and crew work together to make adjustments on the spot. But there is not time to check the new settings. The crew keep their fingers crossed. The test will have to come in the race itself.
本日は多数の参加者の中から特にアメリカからの参加 GF グッドリッチレーシングチームをお招きいたしました。
The changes pay off, and the BFG Lolas quickly move up through the field into 4th and 5th place at the 2-hour mark, much to the relief of the crew and engineers.
Well, we can learn in a 6-hour endurance race what would take us months to learn at a regular test track if we can even generate the conditions we're looking for, so we get really quick turnaround.
At the finish, the cars take 3rd and 4th in the C2 category.
We're going to go out and party tonight. I think that's what we're going to do, because we get back to serious work for next year in 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, it's been a terrific season. In World Championship rounds, we've got 2 firsts, a second, and a third. And those were the races that we've done.
After 4 World Championship events and 6 American IMSA races, 15,000 miles of racing, the season ends. But in motor racing, the season never really ends. Technology thought to be a breakthrough today will be commonplace tomorrow. And limits that may now appear unreachable will be exceeded by those special few who choose to chase them.
I often tell a lot of people that car racing is a bit like being chained to a carousel. It's an exciting job that you don't really notice because you're so involved in it. And what happens is if you ever get any time, if you go skiing, you go along the beach, find yourself missing it.